Hi everyone, David A. Cox here with Tech Talk America, and today it's my pleasure to be offering all of you a free full class on the app known as 1Password. Now, for those of you out there who followed my channel for a while, you've heard me talk about this piece of software before. This is one of the top apps that I recommend along with Malwarebytes for everyone. Because the problem that we have today is that a lot of people think of passwords as just this nuisance, but they don't realize that this is actually about security. And I want to just kind of give you a brief example of this, okay? Sometimes when you hear about these big companies getting hacked, one of the things that the hackers are going after is they're going after the usernames and passwords. And they don't care about people like me who have passwords that are all a bunch of random letters and numbers and symbols, because to them, that says that that person probably has a different password for every single one of their accounts. But then when they come across, the AOL email address with the password that is clearly the name of their dog plus the number 1, well, that is the person who they're going to go after. So without any further ado, let's get started with the class.
All right, folks, before we begin here, there was one thing I forgot to mention in the intro that I think is worth mentioning, which is that I think that 1Password has another use that doesn't really get talked a lot about, which is that it can also act a little bit like a digital will. When you think about it, so much of our lives these days is online. And we have accounts to, of course, all of our banks online these days. And when someone passes and the remaining family members have to, get into each of those accounts, it can be a real nightmare if they don't have the passwords. Simply giving your trusted contacts your master password to 1Password will make that so much easier for them. Just something to consider. All right, so once you've created your account, it's going to ask you to create your master password. I cannot stress enough the importance that you keep that password safe. Tell it to people who need to know it. Write it down if you have to, and just if you are going to write it down, keep it somewhere secure that people are not going to just stumble onto it. And then this is basically what you're going to see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through a couple of different processes, and what I have to do is I have to talk about them first because some of you may be able to skip the first step. So the first step is going to be bringing your old accounts into 1Password so that it has your correct present day usernames and passwords. The second part is going to be where you go and start to basically go through their security audit portion and change your weak passwords and passwords that you've used on multiple accounts into something that is more secure, that is encrypted, that is not the name of your dog. So if you want to enter in your information initially into 1Password, there are two ways that you can do it. You can either just go to the website and sign in the way you normally would, and it will be able to bring that information into 1Password once we install the extension, or the alternative way is you can manually enter it. Manually might be a better option for people who have a list already on their computer that's digital, but it is still kind of it's still a very manual process because you're having to go and do it item by item. You can't just mass import them. So if I'm going to do it manually, what I can do is go here to the little plus symbol. And as you can see here, we have way more than just website passwords that we can keep secure. We have everything from banking information, credit cards, whatever it is. One of the things I love about having the credit card feature is just anytime I need to buy anything online, I can autofill from 1Password, and I don't have to ever remember any of those numbers anymore. It just does everything for me. My guess is that for the majority of you, this is what you're going to be using more than anything, which is the login option. So here we can just manually type in what website it's for, manually type in the website, username rather, manually type in the password, and here it's going to show us what it thinks the strength is. So if it's anything that's a word, it's going to be probably in the red. If it's a bunch of letters and numbers, probably a little bit stronger. The website here this is where you can manually type in the website, but the thing to understand about this is that not every website, when you go to log in, it's not always just like facebook.com. Okay, it's not always that clean. So there's a really key feature that you need to install, or rather just enable, which is in Preferences. We'll get there in just a moment. Below that, we can put in any labels. Personally, I don't really ever use labels or tags for that matter. Notes, I will occasionally use depending on what the type of account is. But these are all just kind of very flexible things that you can use. And as you might imagine, tags you can have show up so that you can just do a quick search and see, all of your, for example, shopping items. Okay? And when you're done, you can simply hit Save. Now, in order to get all of this to communicate with your other devices, it is going to be absolutely essential that you install the web browser extension. It's really, really easy. It's going to look slightly different depending on what web browser you use as your primary browser. These days, I tend to recommend Safari or Chrome over the other options. So in order to do this, what we're going to actually do, you can actually stay in 1Password. Sorry, I don't know why I'm going to Safari right away. We're going to go here to where it says 1Password up at the top left. And if you look right here, the fourth item down is Install Browser Extensions. So this is going to do it for your primary browser. If you need to do it on others, you'll be able to do that as well. You can see here it says not using Safari. Here are your other options. So hit the green button here. That is going to download a small file into your downloads folder. I have the little shortcut right here. And basically, you're just going to double click on this. There'll be one other button that you'll have to click, which is Trust. And at that point, it's all installed. And so then anything you do on your computer, it's going to synchronize with iCloud. And if you download their app on your phone or tablet or whatever else you have, you'll be able to access that same information provided it's all, going through the same account. So in other words, if you're using iCloud, obviously you have to have the same iCloud information signed in on those other devices. Next thing I want to do is I want to go over the preferences here because there are a couple I think we should probably talk about. So here under General, you can basically copy everything I have here. I would recommend using the mini app icon. What that is that's if I turn it off and on, you'll be able to see it. If you look at the top right corner of my screen. So let's say I'm not actually in a web browser, but I need to pull up my login information for something. I can also just click up here and get the same information. Down here we have display rich icons. That basically just means when you start to gather lists and lists and lists of passwords, they can kind of visually all run together. What this will do is it'll go to the website and it'll fetch their little icon thumbnail so that, when it's Facebook, for example, it's the big F logo. And the same for other websites. The next tab that we have here is Security. And this is basically where you can tell it how long do you want it to be before it times out and you have to sign in again, because you don't want it to just be available to anyone who's on your computer. You want to have to enter in the password after a certain period of time. So you can kind of clear out what that is right through here. The next tab that we're going to talk about, we're going to skip accounts, is Watchtower. I would absolutely recommend this. What this is basically going to do is just kind of make sure that the websites that you're going to are the websites that you're going to, if that makes sense. So I would say pretty much everyone, use that feature. Under all vaults, I don't know how many of you are actually going to use this, but this is where you can kind of get into, you can have multiple vaults, and this is just where you can go to kind of manage that and just choose which one is going to be your default. The next tab we have here are browsers, and I would absolutely recommend that you use all of these options here. What this is basically going to do is just make it so that when it does autofill, it's going to also submit. And then this option right here will make it so that if the website address is correct, but like let's say the page where it's asking you to log in isn't actually the home page, it will still work. So for that reason, I would say absolutely use that feature. And obviously enable autosave because you want this to automatically start to register when you're saving passwords. Finally, here we have updates, and I just would say it is a good idea to update when there are updates. Next feature I want to point out here in 1Password is the security audit. Currently I have it hidden, so we're going to show it. And as you start to go through and use this software and enter in all of your usernames and passwords, this is a good thing to periodically pull up because it's going to show you, which are your weaker passwords, which ones are older than others. Even if a password is encrypted, it's still good to change it every couple of years. But it's just a good feature to know about, and that way you can judge, where you need the most improvement. So now that you've entered all of your old passwords and usernames into 1Password, now we're going to talk about how to increase the security of your various accounts. So here you can see I have logged into an Amazon account and I've put my old password, and now I'm about to create a new password. So what I can do is secondary click in this area, and I'm going to go to 1Password. And you'll notice that the first thing that pops up here is the password generator. So this is where I can get it to automatically create a complex password, and I can just slide here to change how complicated it is by adding symbols, changing the length. And this is good to know about because certain websites don't like symbols. So if you need to get rid of this, you can just slide it to 0. Okay, so make it as complex as you need. Hit fill, and then as soon as it's done, it's going to say, do you want to update your password to, in this case, Amazon? And of course, you'd select yes. Before we go, one thing I just want to say is that, I've said this many times before, that security is an emotion. It's not real. And for that reason, because we don't know what we don't know, I do think that it is also a good idea to print out all of your passwords periodically, even the encrypted ones, so that there is at least a record, so that if something catastrophic happened, you could theoretically still get through that. Even though you'd have really, really long passwords now that you would have to manually enter, you could. So the reason why I'm saying this is one of the features that I think you should be very aware of is that when you're done putting all of your usernames and passwords into 1Password, and after you're done updating them and making them more secure, it's not a bad idea to print them. And they do let you do that. And it's going to be a long document you have to put in your password, of course, to continue, but it will put into a very clean document that then you can file away, put wherever you need, whether it's a safe or a security deposit box, whatever it may be. Just a good idea, just in case.
Thank you for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this class, please hit that like button down below. Leave us a comment, share it with your friends. We'll see you next time. This is David A. Cox with Tech Talk America. Class dismissed.